So let's talk about why family is important, and let's look at some of the challenges faced by our single parents or our lone parents here in London and all over the world. I want to find ways that we can help them more. And let's be honest, I have some experience with this. And before I go into my experience with my mother, who raised 3 kids on her own as a single parent, and my wife, who was a single parent before I met her and adopted her daughter, let's look at some of the statistics. And it's true that in Britain, 14.9% of all families are single or lone parent, but it's even higher in London. 20% of families here in London are single and lone parents, and I want to find a way that we can help them more. And let's look at some of the struggles they faced. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. When I was 7 years old, my parents got divorced, and it was a very traumatic time in my life. And I remember from then on, I was really on my own, and I was what they called a latchkey child. I literally had a house key, and even when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I would take the bus to school. I would come home on my own, and I would open the door, and I would spend 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes alone, but until my mom came home. And I really had to try to find a way to adjust. She was working a new job. She had to go back into the workforce. She went and got a job in sales, and she worked really hard to support us and do all the incredible things she did. And she was an amazing mother. She took us all around the world, to Japan and China and Europe. I went to London with her when I was 16 years old. That's probably the reason I'm here. She stressed education. She took me to tour universities all around the world. But the truth is that she could have had more help, and I wish we could have helped her more. And the crazy thing is I saw this same thing play out with my wife. And before we move on, I want to play a short piece of video of me and my mom. I actually went back to San Diego, California to talk to her recently for one of my documentary films called Reconnect. And I talked to her about the divorce and how it affected me emotionally. And here's a short clip where I get really emotional and honest, and I talked to my mom about what it was like when she divorced my father and how I reacted as a child. So this is me sitting down in my living room with my mom, talking about the divorce. What was I like as a kid?
You would kind of bang things on the walls, and you wouldn't just cooperate at all.
Do you think I was angry because of the divorce?
Possibly. I mean, divorces always hurt kids, but I really wanted to minimize it.
Most times it goes back to that moment when I was 7, and you told us about the divorce, and I think for some reason, with my personality, I was just like, I just built these walls all up around me at that time, and that was just like, so it was like, I think I just built these walls up. Then I think I realized I was just trying to keep people out of my life so they wouldn't hurt me.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So I think that's what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
anybody that could hurt me.
Yeah.
So I think.
That's
Yeah.
Give you a hug right now.
And so there's me and my mom. That was a short piece of a documentary film that we made called Reconnect. I went even further with my mom, and we talked a lot about this. And just want to give my mom a shout out if she's watching this. Mom, I love you. You did an amazing job, and I'm so proud of you and what you did with me. And I still can't believe the job that you did raising us 3 punk kids on your own. And I just, when I see that and I think about my childhood, I just think, how could we have helped my mom more? How could we have helped single parents or lone parents more, or all families more? And, strangely enough, I had another experience of single parenthood. And, about 12 years ago, I met my current wife, Mariana, and she was a single mother. And I remember at the time she was working a full-time job. She worked at Dolce & Gabbana in the retail sector. It's actually where I met her when I was shopping one day. And she worked really, really hard, full-time, long hours. And she still had her daughter, Gabby, who was 4, 5, 6 years old when we first started dating. And she was trying to raise her and then travel to central London and travel back. And it was just hard. She just didn't have the help and the resources she needed, which meant that, the education system had to pick up the slack, and Gabby would stay longer at school, or she had to try to find someone to look after her after school. And it was just a stress and a strain on that whole situation. And I got to watch it firsthand. And to be honest, it's one of the reasons that I ended up adopting Gabby and we all moved in together as a family, even though for me that was very uncomfortable for me to do at the time. I thought I was going to be a bachelor my whole life, but I saw that Gabby would never have a proper childhood, I didn't think, unless we had that family structure. And so I adopted Gabby and we all moved in together, and it ended up being a complete game-changing moment for Gabby's future, for Mariana's future, and also for my future. I got so much out of this family structure, and it was really, really powerful. And I'm always thinking, how could we have helped her more with this whole idea of giving support to our lone parents, our single parents, and our family structures. And so here's just a little bit of video of me and Gabby back in the day, and me and Mariana and Gabby as I was starting to become part of their family structure and part of their life. So here's a video of me and them.
I'm here with Gabriella Rose. She is about to cut the chocolate mousse pie that she made. Let me just give you an overhead of this really quick. We're in Ghent in Belgium, and we wanted to say Happy New Year!
And so my conclusion is this, is that our parents need help. They need more help with emotional support, with relationships, with employment, with further education. And if we can think about that as a city, about how we can be preventative, go on early and try to support them in more ways possible, we can potentially ease pressure on our housing, our education system, or even on crime. And funnily enough, I had an incredible conversation when I was at Tower Hamlets with an amazing woman named Alicia. She was actually one of the first people I spoke to, and she came up and talked to me and she said, Brian, honestly, I didn't know much about you and your campaign for mayor, but once I listened to you, I'm completely 100% in. She said, I work with young teenage girls in the community, and we struggle because they get involved with gangs and these county line drug operations, and they go missing. And she said, Brian, the biggest problem we have is from 3:30 p.m. when they leave school to 8:30 p.m. at night when the parent comes home. What do they do with the 5 hours? And she said to me, that old line, the devil finds work for idle hands. She says we need to give them something to do. We need to support those parents, support those family structures somehow, and give options for these children, because when we don't, we pay for it further down the line. We pay for it with our education system when we ask too much from our schools, when we ask them to have more of a parenting role. Sometimes it ends up leading to crime, and it also can increase our housing issues, because if it goes from a two-person home to those parents splitting up, it means we double our housing needs. And so it was really great to speak with Alicia for this, and it was great to get her perspective. And that's what helps me when I go out there in the communities, because I find out what they're really struggling with. And so what I think we see here is a clear need to provide more support for our family structures, regardless of what they look like. And if we can provide the emotional support, the childcare support, employment support, further education support, support in any ways, we're going to solve so many of these big problems that end up coming down the line. Again, prevention is always better than cure. And I want to finish off with another short video clip from Lord Michael Farmer. And here he is talking about some of the repercussions that we see when there is a family breakdown. What happens is it causes other very big problems. Again, prevention as opposed to cure. So here's Lord Farmer talking more about that.
So the repercussions of family breakdown, we see it across every department of government, actually. Loneliness, people living by themselves. Housing problem, you need more houses because people are living by themselves rather than together. Rural communities, the suicide with farmers and things like this. Again, for loneliness, family breakdown. You see it in the defence area with military families where they've got no emphasis. And you see it in the care system. How many children going into care? Why? Because of a bad family background, where it's just broken down. It's chaos.
And there was Lord Farmer, really some incredible insights about what happens when the family breaks down, how it leads to so many other issues.